Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. Hey, everybody. This is part 2 of our interview with Erika Henningsen, recorded long before the quarantine kicked in. If you'd like, you can go back and give part 1 a listen, or not. However you're doing it right. Enjoy the show.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
One of the things we're obsessed with is failure. I think in life in general, and not just with social media, we sort of get the highlight reel. Yes. And we are obsessed with failure. So could you tell us about a time when you felt like you really shit the bed? And it could be in your personal life, it could be in your creative life.
Yeah. Or even perceived failure.
Or even perceived failure.
You felt like it was failure.
I mean, there has been so much failure in my personal life, which is a whole nother After Dark podcast. But I think it all stemmed from the idea that, like, in my personal life, the idea that something that was shiny or alluring was good. And I mean, I just think about that when you think of highlight reel. Like, there were versions of highlight reel choices that I made when it came to people or how I carried myself that were just terrible paths to go down. But from the outside, it looked so good. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that.
So you were catering to sort of like an external gaze of how this would look.
Yes. Okay. An external gaze. And I think that external gaze is the thing that like haunts an A-list shoulder.
Sure. That's right.
And that's the thing that I have to constantly push back and be like, for example, this new show that I'm doing, I'm a very supporting part. And I remember thinking, what are people going to think if I go from that to this? And I have to sit down and be like, who the fuck cares? Like, I'm working on something different with people I like, who I respect, at a cool place in New York City. And I have no idea what this new thing is going to turn into, but it's a step forward, not even towards success. It's just a step forward and away from something that was new comfortable or safe.
Yep. You're onto something.
But with failure, I think for me, there was a lot of failure, and this is going to sound, it's kind of like a paradox. There was a lot of failure in trying to be 100% right.
Say more about that.
I just, and I think it all stems from this comment of this teacher of clearly there, in somebody's eyes who was important to me, there was a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And whenever I decided what that was, I think it crafted in my head this idea that there's a way to nail creativity and be the best at it, whether it's in on stage, in a rehearsal room, in an audition. And if I had any moments of weakness or messiness or and anything that didn't feel like I was in control of it, that to me was a failure.
It's very challenging when it comes to creativity. If you're always like, that's that old Zen koan of like, you need to hold the bird loose enough so you don't crush the bird and tight enough so it doesn't fly away. But if you're holding it tight all the time, remaining in control, remaining, this is my word, not yours, but sort of perfect appearing, that's real hard on creativity.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Like white knuckling.
That's right.
Yeah.
We like to always say, however you're doing it right. And I think that really stems from the knowledge of like, everyone does it differently. And the more you learn that, you're like, what works for one person may not work for another person. And they're both right. Everybody's right. As long as you're creating and making shit,
and not hurting anybody.
Yes. You're doing it right. Right. And not hurting anybody.
Not hurting anyone.
Physically or emotionally.
Yeah.
You're doing it right. Yeah.
Well, how specifically did that show up? And are we talking about like last week or when you were a high schooler? Like, what are you thinking of when you talk about that?
I mean, I have a very specific instance in my head that relates, and I don't mean to keep relating it back to the show, but I feel like these 2 years have been a constant ebb and flow of learning and failing and succeeding and or a constant rotation of those things.
Yeah.
But we were in previews when we were out in DC, and I just broke. Like I cracked. I just had to walk off stage and cry
during the show,
during rehearsal, and there were people there, but I just thought, I was like, I was pretending to have everything under control and just so did not.
Yeah.
And was so confused and felt so like if I can't get through this, I'm letting people down. And I had to walk backstage, and our director, Casey, came up and just said, like, you don't have to push yourself on us. You're here because you are exactly what we want, exactly what the story needs alone. You don't have to force yourself.
No additional work.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And he said that, and it was like immediately like, the tears kept flowing, but like the pressure just dissipated because I just thought, if I'm not like really just motoring this in and getting it 100% right and at a 10 out of 10 out of 10 at all times, then it's not good enough. And it was like the process of unlearning that happened in the show by necessity because that's not sustainable for 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
It's too grindy, and that was the first time I heard him say that.
Yeah.
I don't think it sunk in until maybe 9 months later when the toll it was taking on my body was like, something has to change. And it became less about, being the person driving the car and ensuring that we were always in the right gear and just letting it ebb and flow.
Just more ease.
Wow. And I think that about creativity. I think I had so much more fun and discovered so much more about the character and about myself when I did that. I wish I had learned it sooner in the process, but I'm happy I learned it at all.
Yeah, makes sense for sure.
So how do you think that learning, that to me also feels like something, that I might relearn and then unlearn and relearn and relearn. How do you feel like that has impacted your creativity?
I think I'm less afraid of judgment. And I want, in terms of my
that external gaze.
The external gaze.
Yeah.
I think also when it comes to teaching, which does feel like a part of my creativity, I want students to be less afraid of judgment.
Yeah. My God, yes.
Because I think I used to teach in a very regimented way that helped kids understand
the discipline required.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just thought, you can learn, there's a time for discipline, and I'm just seeing more and more. There's a time to like be soft and be forgiving and be messy. And to throw things up on the wall and just see if you like it. And I think it's also, I've just noticed that my trust in myself, as opposed to, you know, I was that person, if I had an audition for something that existed already, I would go see it and I would think, well, I got to copy exactly that. Because I'm a good student. I can take notes. So I would do that. And I just think I trust myself more now that whatever my interpretation is correct.
What you're saying also reminds me of this Spark that we recently did, and I don't know when this will air, but it reminds me of the Spark that I recently did about preparation.
Yes.
And I just talked about these performers. They were all performers, I think, that I really admired, as opposed to other types of creatives who make it look effortless, but they really put a lot of work into it. But something that what you're saying reminds me of a lesson that I try to remember. On my good days, I do. Many days I don't, which is you do all of that hard work. You do all of that preparation. You have all of that discipline. And then when it's go time, you let it go and you let it fly. Yes. And that's the magic trick is the letting it go.
You got to let it go.
But B is that that's a trick. Yeah. It's not always easy.
And I do wonder if the only reason I learned it was because I stuck around long enough on this show to learn it. It became so comfortable. The prep was so in depth that I could finally let it fly. And I just
put on your flannel and your backpack and rip.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just hope I can keep that sense of trust and ease in myself. And I know what this is. So if I try it this way, it may not land or whatever that means, but it will be right because it will be real on something that is not so ingrained into my body.
Do you feel like you're able to apply these principles in the show that you're rehearsing now? Yeah. Like, can you feel yourself?
It's interesting. It's really, I mean, we're on day 4 of rehearsal. I just think it's so uncanny that you're we're having this right here.
Hey,
because
thanks for making the time. You've got 2 jobs.
I mean, it's kind of amazing.
But this is so rejuvenating because this is, this is the stuff I love. And this is what, this is my favorite part of getting to be a performer is getting to communicate about creativity to people.
My favorite part isn't really doing the work. It's talking about
the work. We love to talk a lot.
It's just fascinating though. And I find rejuvenation from hearing about other people's processes. Yeah. Because when you're stuck so long doing the same thing, you forget there's other options. I'm finding that shifting the gears is harder than I thought it was going to be.
Shifting the gears to the new project or shifting the gears of preparation to letting go?
I think both. I will say there's a lot, and maybe it's just because I'm tired. I feel a lot less pressure to be perfect in rehearsal anymore. That's because I just think it's just rehearsal. Good. I mean, I'll get there. I'll get there in my own time. We'll figure it out. Whereas, I showed up for rehearsal for Mean Girls and it was like, I know every single note I'm going to sing. I know exactly how I'm going to sing it. I've thought it all through.
Good student.
Yeah. Good
Which student. Is, and there's elements of that I'll carry with me forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you feel fear about anything?
Oh my gosh. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So much.
What causes the scary feelings at this point in your career? Because I know that changes. That's a continuum, but
I think for me, the thing that I'm most afraid of is I want to do this for a reason, and I want to do this for a purpose larger than the A-list and the money and just constantly being working. And I worry that years might pass and I will have not done that. I do think I am meant to be a performer, but even going from this show to the next, I've realized I'm excited. It's not going to be enough.
You need the extra.
You need the other piece.
Yes.
Yeah. The other piece, those threads have to be woven and not lightly through. Yeah. They have to sort of shoot through everything that you do.
Everything I do.
And it also feels like it's up to you because whereas people will likely always be asking you to do interpretive work.
Sure.
Because of your skills and your talent, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But less people are going to be asking like, and we'd like you to be an activist, and we'd like you to add the book collection at the stage door, and we want you to register vote. They're not going to ask for it. So it's going to be up to you to say, I'm here for it. I want to do it. Make those opportunities happen, or make the connections to the people who are looking for exactly what you can offer.
As you have done in the past, this is, you're not reinventing the wheel here.
Sure.
This is a beautiful opportunity for your creative self-expression and your activism to come through.
Yes.
And you can be wild. I think what you've done is wildly creative thus far.
Amazing.
And I look forward to seeing more of the things you do.
Yeah.
As you're talking, it also strikes me, I feel like one of the cool things as we all sort of age and mature, God willing, that we get, more time on the planet to like try things and fail at things and work things out and learn these finer distinctions about ourselves as people and as artists are bumping into things like Maida Wagner's work and saying, I've been read and you've got some
me.
Maida read me.
But the thing that's so cool about it, I've said this many times, but when I first heard her speak, I was like, I thought I was so special and unique. Turns out I'm easily typed. But the thing that was so comforting to me about it is it was another piece of information, another fine distinction that I had in my arsenal, so that when opportunities either come to me externally or sparks of inspiration rise up from inside of me, it gives me a measuring stick against which to measure these opportunities and say, I almost like that opportunity, but I need to have a discussion with leadership about how we can bake in more activism.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Or I like this opportunity. This is really crushing it on the A-list front, but I'm also going to simultaneously, parallel to this project, I'm also going to be going door to door registering voters or performing in that fundraiser for the ACLU or whatever that thing is.
100%.
I feel like those things, I love all those distinctions because I'm just like, well, it's going to make it easier for me to make my next decision and to explain to people like, I don't know, my representation, why my heart doesn't beat faster when you tell me about that straight offer that I've just received.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's knowing like that is I'm learning to not be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Whereas before I think,
I want to be a valued client.
right, I just want the job. I want the thing.
Yeah.
I want
the A-list opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing it can live, like you said just now, it can live in tandem with something else.
Yeah.
But I have to go out and continue to create those things because I really think back on like these last 2.5 years. The happiest times were when it was living in tandem with activism.
That's right.
I love that story
right.
about your boyfriend. You're like, I don't feel so good. And your boyfriend's like, it's because the book drive, the books have been
The books are
shipped.
gone. Our apartment was just filled with books. It was the happiest time. It was the best.
Our prescription for you is I feel like that thread of activism has to be shot through so much of your life.
And I'm looking ahead to this next phase. That's going to be the double duty life for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, you're not going to be able to do it. And you need to.
For a moment.
Can I
pull your
pull my toe?
I just pulled Erika's toe.
Pull my toe.
And she farted. It was so weird.
So weird.
Or can I?
Timing
There's
of
no
it was
can't.
incredible.
There's no can't.
But in this time when you are double dutying and you
This is when the juice is.
This is we know you have a little slice of time when you can doodle on the subway.
Yeah.
That has been established.
know that.
100%.
Might that time be used to daydream and research about what the next book drive is going to be?
Yes.
Or what the next voter registration drive is going to be?
100%.
Hatching plans and harvesting sparks.
Yes. This is my hatching plan. Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Cam was just saying last night, I'm sorry, I'm just like yakety yak. And Cam was just saying last night something that I thought was so true, which is the creative life cycle is sort of like the life cycle of the phoenix. It's sort of like sparks rise up, you fan them into flames, they come into maturation, you share the light with people, they conclude, the sparks die out, a fresh spark comes up. And you were saying that you feel like people, how did you say that? Like nobody's really satisfied with where they are on the cycle at any time.
At any time.
Because we've talked
You always wish you were somewhere else on the cycle.
You do, because people who are like in the process, they're like, oh my God, I just can't, I want to be finished.
Right.
I want the show to open. I want to finish my book, what have you.
I want the show to close.
You know, and
Yep.
then they get there and it's like, oh, I don't know what my next project's going to be.
So now I don't like
hang
this
on, we
thing.
haven't even celebrated that you got this project
Right.
done, but you're
fruits of the
already
labor.
like, oh, but I'm envious of this person who's mid-process. Like you just were mid-process. So it's just
Yeah.
like, can we accept like where we are
In the cycle.
in
the
the cycle and also the threads.
So
too.
you're
Love
parallel because right now you are you're concluding the show. It's a very dynamic time for you. You're concluding
very.
the show.
100%.
You're starting a new project. And we also know, it's been well established on this podcast, that there needs to be the thread of activism that's running
That's
through.
right.
Yes.
But I do like the idea, and you have great capacity, so we believe in you. I do like the
Yes, we
idea
do.
of you in these little in between moments, subway rides, drifting off to sleep, waking up in the morning over coffee, of harvesting some sparks and seeing what really excites you and what really moves you for that next thing.
It also makes me
love
think of this quote, which I think we've talked about before, but we're going to talk about it again. It's from a book called The Moviegoer, and we just had someone on who had posted about it. But it is essentially the gist of the quote, which I will get wrong, is like to be onto something, gives us life, and to not be onto something brings despair. And
I
be
love that.
onto something. So we have talked now for like 3 days straight about like, oh my God, before we got onto the Spark File, we were both like, what are we doing?
Yes.
And we want to apply ourselves to something. We want to be onto something. And it gives to me like new meaning to all the times that people have said, like they've read my work or something, like you're really onto something special here. And I'm like, onto something. And the thing is, like, you do have your A-list work lined up.
Sure.
But you want to be onto something
Some
in
activism.
terms of the activism.
Yes. Which
We're
is
just
such a
looking for it.
distinction of the execution of something, because that
right.
can feel like, wait, but I don't know how to execute that right now. But just having the spark,
Just
be onto
right.
something.
Just
Be
looking
onto
for spark.
something.
Gentle.
enough,
You're so
yes.
busy. Take it easy.
Yeah, just look for it.
Just look for it. Because I will say I am that person. And those two, the things that happened during the show, other things have been those thoughts that I just run with immediately as fast as possible. And knowing that just to be a little gentle and let things
See what rises to the
Surface.
surface.
Exactly.
Yes.
let it come to
Oh
the
my
excited for you.
gosh, I'm super excited. Is there anything creative that you need to do in your life before you're done? Like beyond theater and what you're doing now?
I do want to write. I want to write something that, for a while, I thought it was going to be a book. And the more that I think about it, I just think I am too visual to not write something that is not seen or told in stories and pictures.
Yeah.
And it might even be as simple. I have no desire to I need to create something that's a hit or that people love. But there's something that I have found just from talking to my friends that I think the people that I think I know really well, and then I learn something about them that completely shifts perception. That is one of my favorite discoveries when you meet
like that
somebody.
turn?
Yeah, that turn. Or where you start to understand people that you had previously judged, or because I think there's a lack of empathy right now in the world, and we're quick to judge and we're quick to assume.
Yeah.
And I would love to, I love the German language a lot. There's this incredible German short film called Schwarzfahr, which is in black and white. Look it up, which translates to black rider, which is a term of somebody who like doesn't pay for their subway ticket or something. Look at this film. But I just remember watching it when I was a German student, and I just thought that it was short. It was 5 minutes. And it's one of those things that just shifts your perception so immediately and so simply, very quietly done. And I just thought I would love to create like a series of vignettes like that, where we all think we know this person in front of us.
Yes.
And then the rug is pulled out from under us. That's like my favorite moment.
I love that. What a great.
That's
I have just a tiny side tangent. I have a favorite moment. I have a favorite moment, which is I am fascinated by the moment where people go from just being like two distinct people to being two distinct people who are kissing each other. Like when you break through the film of just being like the first time people turn into each other and kiss each other. I'm fascinated by that
space, like, because I freaking love like that space, like right before they kiss. Do you mean that?
Yes, I mean that into the kiss. Because Hunter Bell calls it breaking the pudding film, where it's sort of like we were separated by this like sort of invisible thing, and then it's just like bloop. I reach through, and I'm in your
and
Jell-O
now
pudding.
We're kissing. Wow.
I know. Anyway, that's a tangent.
Wait, you need
Back
to do that. Maybe just
something
like
about
I feel like
2
I've
second
made a
video
career
clips.
of going
Montage.
around and putting my mouth on people. I'm doing better now. We live in a new time.
We live in a new time. You need to ask consent before you lick someone's cheek.
Consent, Erika. Consent before I pull your toe and make you fart.
She did it. She
but
did
back
it.
to you.
Did the mics catch it?
I love this. I love this idea of you're fascinated by the moment that is the pivot where we perceived something, but there's a turn that happens and
new information.
I also like that you're not exactly sure yet. You've at first said book, but then I was like graphic novel, choreography, a series of short films, a series of
who knows, and it doesn't matter.
Knows.
Not right now.
You can just start to cultivate those stories, those thoughts, those examples of the turn.
Can we
Can
give you the lightest homework assignment and then never know if you did it?
Touch.
As you move through the world, if you see examples in real life, if you see, or I guess in other mediums, if you see examples of that turn that you love, start writing them down.
I need to collect. Yes. I feel like that's how. I mean, that's your spark file, isn't it? Where you just start collecting.
There you go.
Oh, look at you. We're getting you to make a spark file.
It's like just collecting those little,
just went on.
those little moments.
That's it.
That's right.
I love that.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know. Give me my own. That's the thing. It's like she loves getting homework, but I got to create my own homework.
You thought you were in just for this conversation, but now you're like, wait, somehow I left with a list of things to do.
I'm ready for it. I'm so excited.
Erika, you do so much. You work so hard. You may have already said the answer to it, but maybe you'll say it again a different way. What's it all for?
I think it's for growth. I think that's kind of the only reason I do anything. I think not just growth for myself, but I think the more that you are collaborating with humans, being pushed into uncomfortable situations, telling a story, not telling a story, incubating and thinking on things. For me, I just think, I don't know if success has been something that, I think success for a long time was what I thought the goal was. And I just think you'll never have enough of that, or there's a cap to it.
Yeah.
And I just think as long as you are seeking to grow in some way and move forward, I feel like that's the only goal that is sustainable for your whole life. And I I'm learning that the way you grow is many times in ways that people will not see or pay you for. And I just think that like I'm realizing that is kind of to live creatively or just to live in a fulfilled way. I don't even think happiness is the goal, but I think being at peace with where you are on that Phoenix cycle, like what phase of growth are you in? I think that's what it's for. And if you feel like you're growing a little bit every day or just changing or challenging yourself, I think to me, that's what it's all for. I think that's the only reason we're here.
I love it. And it is one of those good goals that it's like heading east. You can always head more east.
Yes.
You can always grow more. I love that.
And it is another thing on your list of, the measurement for my next job, my next project.
Yes.
Does it have the activism piece? Does it provide an opportunity for growth for me?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, Kate. Yes. You're so smart.
You're so smart.
It's so true. And if it doesn't, how do I thread that in?
That's right. Because
that's on
growth
me.
is the reason.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I think that's what it's all for.
That's a pretty good one. That's pretty good. Now, can you tell us what or who is sparking you these days? What's got you lit up?
My book club.
Oh,
We've got a book club. We've got a book club.
Awesome.
Erika's got a book club.
I love it so much. I love it so much.
You do love books.
What are you reading?
We've read, our next book club meeting is February 10th. We read
Everybody's invited.
Everybody's invited. Come over to my house.
Meet back here.
We read that book on the shelf, The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer. And before that, we read Three Women. Okay. And then before that, we read, what was our second book? Oh, Somebody Chose the Stranger.
Camus.
Camus. Interesting. And then we read, what was our very first book? Maybe our first book was Three Women. This is our next book is going to be, well, the one I want to suggest is, these are also the women who are inspiring me. Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey, who are the New York Times reporters.
Yeah,
That's
I think that honestly, when I think of something that I've been excited by, that might be the next spark.
That's a great spark.
Yeah.
But I love my book club so much. I just love
It's a great one.
communities outside of the communities that you are hired to be in.
How did you find your book club?
I started it. I was reading Three Women at the time, and I told my boyfriend that he should read it because I was like, you need to learn about this book. I just think it explains, it actually doesn't explain anything. It just gives you three very honest accounts of like female sexuality. So he read it and he said, I would never have picked this up, but I'm so happy you made me read it. And I just thought, okay, great. So let's just do that. We each invited 3 people. And then a couple people went away and they were able to, a couple people had to go out of town for jobs. And I said, okay, great. Fill your spot with somebody else. So it kind of changes every time. We have like a few core who are just in New York.
But they have to have read the book.
But they have to read the book. And what we do is everybody puts in a book suggestion at the end of the night. We pull one out. That's the one we read. And then for the remaining slips, everybody pulls out another one. So you walk away with a suggestion of a book to read in.
That is
your
so
own time.
And do you meet once a month or?
We averaged once a month, but it's really, I mean, I love that. I love talking to people.
Yeah. You love reading, bringing people together.
Yeah.
Salons.
And I will say, I think, this book that we just read was fiction, but I've loved reading nonfiction with the group because I think, especially when it's things that are about sort of today's, what's in the news, on any scale, I just think it gets so easy to be in like an echo chamber.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Or to not even realize that, somebody I feel super close to has a different opinion of this thing that I thought we both felt equally passionate about in the same way.
Yeah.
And for me, it provides the safe space to sort of talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to open your head to other perceptions.
Man,
I love my book
club
club.
Probably provides.
Do you want to come to the book club?
Oh my God, yes, actually.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh,
amazing.
We did.
I know, sad Sadly.
This was so fun.
We'll do it again.
You are, honestly,
loved
I'm
this.
not kidding. I feel like these topics I could talk to you for like 10 more hours
I
about
know.
them.
Let's just turn the mics off and keep going.
Okay. And I want to read these books because I have not read through them. Yes.
All night.
Oh, I guess that's it.
It is.
We hope that this put another
Boo.
bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and you fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, won't you email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, it really helps if you share it with people that you love. If you didn't like it, I don't know, Erika, what do you say to your critics?
If they didn't like it,
Yeah.
go find something you do like. Don't waste time doing something you don't.
There you go. There you go.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that has been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to fountain pen it. You got to comedian it. You got to choose what moves your heart. Then Erika Henningsen it. You got to take it and make it. Hey!
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.